about sexual harassment allegations.
We've had no response, so we're here in person today to try and get some answers.
Right there was the voice of an extremely respected and revered journalist, also a woman's advocate, personally coming up in media in the journalist field. I've watched her on CBS News. I watched her on The Early Show. I watched her on Fox and Friends. I watched her face adversity inside of her job. I watched her stand up and be brave and fight against sexual harassment in the workplace. And I watched her continue the conversation as she is now. Breaking the Silence premieres Monday at 8 p.m. on Lifetime. It's going to touch on a lot of topics that a lot of us aren't willing to talk about, don't really know how to talk about, don't even fully understand what we're talking about. And sometimes what happens is oblivious to us that it's even going on. We're talking about sexual harassment in the workplace. Please welcome her to the show, the one and only Gretchen Carlson. Gretchen Carlson is here.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm. And you're from Minnesota, right?
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Say that again?
Yeah, sure.
What does that mean?
That means that if you're from Minnesota, you've said that a million times.
Oh, okay. Because we go to Minneapolis a lot.
Well, because it's a great music capital of the world. Right?
Absolutely. So
I'm
home
not
of
sure. Prince and many others.
Talk to him, Gretchen.
Listen, I used to go see Prince at First Avenue, one of his first clubs that... Don't tell my mom that I was there.
You were sneaking in,
at a certain age. Yeah, I was actually. But I was a musician as a child myself.
You were a violinist,
Yeah,
right?
violinist.
Yeah.
So music is really, in my bones. And so I had great appreciation for his talents way back then. That was before he was really Prince, where he was just sort of starting out in the nightclub scene. And then one of my very first concerts as a kid was Prince. after he had made it.
Yeah, so you knew him pre-Purple Rain.
I did.
Okay, and then went after Purple Rain as well to see him perform. We have that in common, Gretchen. Also, I went I went into journalism. I worked with MTV News for so many years, and then doing broadcast journalism. I don't consider myself necessarily a journalist, but I walk that walk. Yep. And then also I came in the game playing an instrument too. Heather B will tell you that I play,
the harmonica.
It wasn't a harmonica. I started off with a
song
flute, and then I jumped.
One of those plastic ones you
the
do
recorder.
in the third grade.
Yeah. Is he good at it?
We still don't have any proof that he actually did it, Gretchen.
Okay.
That's a kazoo.
Yeah, kazoo. We didn't have social media back there. I didn't post it on IG stories, Gretchen. It's not.
Come on.
It's not on my Facebook feed or none of that.
Well, you can always bring one in now.
I could do that, but my objective is to give light to my guests. Dang, Gretchen, what is this?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, okay. I'll sit back. You're supposed to be in control.
No. This is honestly, I just want to, I'm so interested in this topic, and I'm glad that the environment is such where now people have platforms and have the courage to actually talk about it. You could have done a documentary on anything, but you chose this particular subject. Why is that?
And I chose to focus on the every woman, which is the most important part of this documentary. It's not any well-known journalists. It's not any famous actresses from the Harvey Weinstein allegations. These are minimum wage workers. 3 of the women that I feature are working at McDonald's. I feature a female firefighter, a woman who works at the Department of Veterans Affairs in my home state of Minnesota. These are stories, and it's why it's called Breaking the Silence, because these women's stories have never been heard. And I wanted them to know that I care about their stories and that the world should care about their stories, because the predominant number of stories of sexual harassment are these types of women, the just average, regular woman just trying to work as hard as she can and bring home money and raise her kids.
Yeah.
And those are the stories that nobody's really paid attention to. And I wanted to honor these women.
I know, I would imagine that women are always, and men, right, who've experienced sexual harassment, but it's about every woman. Women aren't always comfortable with coming forward. The fact that you've experienced it yourself with Fox and actually pressed charges and went to court and fought, did that make it easier for them to come forth with you and speak with you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I didn't have a lot of similarities with some of these women at all.
Yeah.
But when you've both experienced harassment in your life or even assault, it's almost like you have this immediate trust connection.
Right.
And so I went down and met all of these women. I mean, I spent my entire summer and most of the fall traveling our country to put this doc together. I did all the interviews. And we go back and revisit these women, hard to say. And we watch their transformation from first being, scared to tell me their stories because this is raw, explosive allegations of things that happened to them. And then we go back and we visit them, and they're transforming and they're being empowered, and now they're coming together with one another, and they're going and they're doing protests and marches, and now they're training other fast food workers to know that their voice also matters. And so throughout the doc, you see these young women who are 20 years old suddenly believe in themselves from being so beaten down and not knowing where to turn, and then finding the courage to complain, first of all, and speak out to me.
Yeah.
And now they're transforming, and they're living a life that they never envisioned for themselves now. As women who are out there on the national scene helping other women. I mean, they could have never known that was going to happen to them. So it's a positive result for them, and hopefully encouraging to other women who watch this, and men, that if you're going through something like this, that it can turn around for you if you speak up.
What is your transformative story? Because you went through it yourself. Were you scared to complain initially?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what kind of job you have or how much money you're making.
Yeah.
Or listen, this is not a decision that you make overnight.
Yeah.
This is something that I grappled with for years. And to be totally honest with you, a lot of it had to do with the one night I remember a couple months before I filed my suit when my parents both called me together on the phone. I'm blessed to still have them in my life.
Yeah.
And no matter how old you get, you still want your parents' approval.
Of course.
And especially with something like this, that was going to affect their lives too. And they said to me on the phone, and very emotionally, that they were behind me with whatever I had to do. And we actually document my emotional journey in this documentary Monday night.
Okay.
We go back to my small town in Minnesota where I grew up, and we meet with my parents, and it's very emotional. We meet with my best friend, and we talk about the ripple effect of when you find the courage to come forward with something this big, how that affects those closest to you as well. It's not just you. I also have a husband and 2 children who are teenagers, and as I said, my parents and my friends. So it follows my emotional journey, and then it moves into all of these other women to share their stories. And then you see me jumping out of a lot of cars because I am out there to get answers for these women.
Yes.
And so it's not just sharing their stories. It's, okay, now what? What do these companies have to say for themselves when they allegedly didn't listen to their complaints? And what can we do as companies in this country to be better corporate citizens to our people?
Yeah.
And to make safer work environments. And that's what I really hope that the end result is of this doc after it airs.
Gretchen Carlson is here. The doc is called Breaking the Silence, premiering Monday at 8 p.m. on Lifetime.
Gretchen, I'm wondering on the subject of sexual harassment and assault as it pertains to women. We've had plenty of conversations here of just how there's a global unlearning when it comes to men, and then learning, and a lot of guys don't even know how certain things that they were taught were manly and acceptable are the complete opposite to women. Did you find like some common just actions that the women were experiencing that you can share with men?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of touching that's going on, right? Either with hands or with body parts, and thinking that kind of rubbing up against people is appropriate. That was predominant in almost all of these stories. And then, of course, comments, being aggressive with regard to wanting to hook up even after being told no. And in one case of the woman who works at McDonald's in New Orleans, unfortunately, her explosive allegation is that after she endured sexual harassment on the job, she was also allegedly assaulted in the bathroom by a fellow colleague, with attempted rape. And so incredibly painful experiences. I think the thing is that most people know what behavior is inappropriate and what's not. And it's why one of the things I've really been focusing on over the last couple of years since my story broke is the attention we should be paying to our boys. A lot of this is, well, this is a woman's issue. It's actually really not a woman's issue. And by calling it a woman's issue, we almost do it a disservice because men, even if they want to help, they hear women's issue and they just tune out.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's not because they don't care, but it's because of what we call it. So we really should change it to be calling it more of a man's issue to try and get men involved in helping us. Because let me tell you something, we need you. We need you. First of all, the burden shouldn't just be on women's shoulders, but we can't do it by ourselves. We need men to help us. So I think a huge part of that equation, other than getting men to come forward and say, hey, I saw that happen to her, and stop being bystanders, is how we raise our boys.
Yes.
It's crucial that we are teaching our boys how to respect women early on, so that when they get into the workplace, they respect women the same way that they respected their moms. It's absolutely crucial. And we do a great job of empowering girls. There's so many organizations out there, right? But we don't talk a lot about empowering boys.
Right.
Gretchen Carlson. All right, we're going to open up the phone lines. Perhaps you have a situation you want to discuss. You want to help it be identified, and perhaps Gretchen has some great advice for you. 888-742-3345. Sway in the Morning, Shade 45. Into the EEOC, 45% of the EEOC's harassment claims were sex-based. At least 25% of women experience sexual harassment in the workplace. 75% of harassment victims experience retaliation when they reported it. Somewhere between 87 and 94% of employees experiencing harassment do not file a formal complaint. Sexual harassment costs companies millions every year.
I wanted to ask Gretchen, what is your take on men and sexual harassment in terms of being harassed? Because I kind of feel like, and I'm part of the boys club sometimes. I love sports. I hang out. I listen to a lot of guys talk. If a hot girl or their hot boss is hitting on them, it might be okay. You know what I mean? It will hot coworker. But if it's a chick that they don't like or deem as fat or ugly or whatever, they don't want that. I wish she'd leave me alone. I wish that. How do men kind of gauge sexual harassment?
Yeah, it's hard for me to speak on behalf of men because
obviously
it's but I do want to acknowledge that men can be victims. Because I've heard from men in this process. I mean, by far, I've heard from women.
More
thousands.
women.
Thousands and thousands of women. But I don't want to discount the fact that there are
they
men
can.
out there who have also been through really scary times in the workplace. With regard to whether or not the woman is hot or not, like I don't want to get into that.
Right.
I don't know. I can't think like a man would think about whether or not one would be acceptable and one would not be. But I think to be fair to ourselves, we kind of just have to know that any behavior like that is not acceptable. It doesn't matter what the person looks like.
Right. And that's what because I was in a conversation like this, I was explaining to a male friend that a manager or boss calling your home at 9 p.m. at night that has nothing to do with work, you need to start paying attention to that.
Right.
Like, it's a form of harassment. Like, what are you doing at 9:30 on a Thursday night? It's leading to something.
Right.
So,
if they're not asking you what you're going to bring into work the next morning,
Absolutely.
and are you prepared for the meeting?
And the first thing he said was that she's hot. She's back, so it was
So
just
he
like
liked it. Yeah. Well, I mean that's a slippery slope there. Whether that's going to be a relationship or whether it's going to be harassment. I mean, sometimes there are relationships that are going on at work that are not any form of harassment. But bottom line is, I just want to acknowledge that men can also be
harassed as well.
and be victims. Yeah.
Gretchen Carlson is here. What's your social media? Because a lot of folks are going to want to reach out to you directly. They might have questions for you. How can they reach you?
Yeah, it's easy. My website's GretchenCarlson.com, at Gretchen Carlson for Twitter, at Gretchen Carlson for Facebook, the real Gretchen Carlson on Instagram.
So the citizens are going to call. We call our listeners the citizens, and they're calling up right now. If you have any questions for Gretchen, quick question, and hopefully we'll get a quick response so we can get to as many as possible. We got Mimi on the line from Mississippi.
Mimi.
Good morning, Mimi.
Mimi.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mimi. How are you?
I'm doing fine today, and y'all?
Can't complain. We got Gretchen Carlson here. You have a question?
Well, yes, I'm recently going through, I guess you'd say, a harassment issue right now. It's basically new, so I'd rather not go into details about the situation. It's just that the guy that was training me overstepped his boundaries, and when I wouldn't take the bait, he got mad and just started trying to talk to me and treat me any kind of way. But at that point, I knew it was a problem because I ain't going to let the President of the United States talk to and treat me any kind of way. So I reported him. Now I'm off work with pay, pending investigation.
And unfortunately, Mimi, that's that's a typical story where, she's had the courage to come forward and report something, and now she's the one that's not working.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like she did something wrong for simply coming forward. We've got this totally backwards, this whole thing, that's not the way it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be that we actually celebrate her for coming forward, and that we're looking at the alleged perpetrator to figure out what he actually did, and he should be the one that's not coming to work.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, this is where we have to get in this society where we completely change the dynamic 180 degrees. But her story, unfortunately, she's not alone.
Uh-huh.
I mean, right now, I can tell you on my website, there are thousands of people who reach out to me every single day with a very similar story where, had the courage to report it. Now, I do have to be optimistic because I've been working so hard on this for the last 2 years. We are making progress.
Okay.
We are making progress. There are some big companies out there that have really taken upon themselves to be more introspective about providing safe work environments. And one of the ways they've done that is they've changed their employment contracts to take away clauses that would force these kinds of issues into secrecy. So, I'd like to call out Microsoft for being the first one to do that.
Okay.
Also, Uber and Lyft and Google and Facebook and eBay are some of the other ones that have done that. So I do see progress on that front. But we have a long way to go with regard to how we train our employees. And we need to stop having it be like a cover your ass facade.
Yeah.
Say, hey, we got a zero tolerance policy here. Well, that's not working.
Yeah.
It's not working. And Mimi's a pure example of how that's not working.
What could Mimi do?
Well, Mimi's now, I guess, off work. I hope she's getting paid, but off work because they're having an investigation.
Yeah.
Who knows how long that's going to take. But I've talked to countless women that after the investigations, guess what they're told?
What?
We found nothing. We found nothing. I hope that's not going to be the case.
And then Mimi has to work back in an environment that just isn't healthy.
Well, or that, God willing, this doesn't happen, but oftentimes they shift people around to different departments or they terminate you.
Mimi, good luck with it all. Keep us posted and definitely reach out to Gretchen directly, okay?
I will.
Thank you. I'm sorry
Thanks
this
for
is
the call.
happening to you. Angel is in Michigan. How long did it take for Fox to respond to your complaints?
Well, immediately because it was on the national scene. I mean, they became public on the day that I filed the lawsuit. So, I mean, there were statements on the first day. My alleged perpetrator was fired 2 weeks later. Okay. I mean, I think it's one of the reasons that women have found the confidence to come forward is that they saw, in my case, consequences.
Yeah, consequences. Angel is on the line from Michigan. Good morning, Angel.
Hey, Angel.
Hi, how's everybody doing today?
Doing great. Doing great. Say hello to Gretchen Carlson.
Hi, Gretchen. I just want to tell you first, I mean, God is good because I'm in the parking lot right now. I'm 2.5 hours away from where I normally work at because I've reported harassment for the last 2 years. And I finally stood up and said, you know what, enough is enough. I'm not walking back in there today. And they asked me to come out here to another center. So I had to make this 2.5 hour trip. And I'm scared. I'm not going to lie. I've got 8 kids, a husband. We're getting ready to close on our house. And I might not have a job when I walk out of here, but I'm doing it for myself and I'm doing it for my team, because nobody should have to feel like this. I've had some panic attacks, scared to death to go to work, and I need to provide. My kids got to eat, and then you take it home and, your irritability, you take it out on your kids. It's not fair. My family doesn't deserve this. And I get it because I've hid it for so many years and I've reported it and it's been swept under the rug. And it's like, you have to take a stand and not let them keep sweeping it under the rug. So while we're here on national radio, I'd like to challenge AAA of Michigan as a well-known insurance company, because at this point, I mean, I probably don't have a job anyway. So do what's right by women, do what's right by your employees, and quit sweeping this under the rug. Well, and I sure hope somebody's listening.
I'm listening to you, Angel, and I'm really proud of you today. Mm-hmm. And it takes tremendous amount of courage, and I know that personally, how much courage it takes to do what you're doing today. And the idea that you've decided to stand up and say enough is a huge step, and really proud of you. And maybe it's not such a bad thing that you actually named where you work, because there may be accountability. The biggest piece of advice that I would give to you is that to make sure that you document, because in my book, Be Fierce, at Chapter 4, it's my playbook, and I just encourage every woman to go out there and get it if they're going through this right now. It's a 12-point plan. The number one thing is you have to document, because we're still in this he said, she said kind of environment, and if you don't have documentation and evidence, a lot of times we think we can just keep taking it, and like you, Angel, one day we just say, we've had enough. So make sure that you have that documentation so you can go back and say it started here and this is how it's continued.
That's good. 12-step. That's good.
12-step. Angel, thank you for sharing your story, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. And let us know how it turned out today. We'll be back on the air Monday.
Sure will.
All right. Thank you. You're a citizen. Gretchen, our time has come to a halt.
Oh, darn.
I know. It seemed like it just went by, right?
Thanks for having me.
But thank you for your bravery in sharing your story. I remember you all over the headlines, and I was wondering what that must be like to take on a major corporation like that. But you came out, I won't say you came out on top necessarily because you had to, or you have had to go through that ordeal, but the way you're dealing with it and sharing your experience and people are learning from it and healing from it, I appreciate you. So congratulations, Gretchen Carlson, ladies and gentlemen. Give a round of applause.
Thank you.
All right. Breaking the silence. Don't forget on Lifetime, 8 p.m. on Monday. Gretchen, you want to say anything in closing?
Just thank you to all the women out there who found the courage over the last couple of years to know that your voice matters.
That's what's up. Shay 45, Sway in the morning.